Okay.
So this is the very first in-person videoed podcast. I don't know what I'm doing. We just took us half an hour to sort of set this up. It's really it's really janky. There's cables going everywhere. I've got a broken back as of 4 days ago, so I'm sitting here in a little bit of discomfort. And Adam's been kind enough to be the guinea pig for the first in-person chat.
Hmm.
Um, Thanks
Yeah.
for making the time.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. I don't really
I
have
know.
any idea
I
of
was
what we're
driving
doing.
over here and I'm like, well, I can be as organized as I want, but then when I get there, there's going to be all this kerfuffle trying to set it all up, and you know, you kind of
Hmm.
it'll be all right. But a little context. So, I moved to the island 2.5 years ago. I was told you got to go see Adam, who lives on this property called Greenhaven, which we'll eventually get to and talk about. And I remember, Adam, the first time I met you, you were building your house out here. And I made friends with Ryan, who lives on the property as well. And I
Hmm.
came up and into your house, and you were quite quiet. And I'd heard a lot about how creative you were, and I'd already been blown away by what you'd done down in the forest. Like, Ryan lives in this amazing Hobbit style treehouse, and I walked into your place and saw that you were doing all the brickwork.
Hmm. Yeah.
And to be honest, I drove away from that interaction feeling pretty crappy about myself. I was like, I thought I was creative, and it's nothing on you. I was like, this guy is next level. And I remember driving down the road towards my farm and thinking, oh man, I've just wasted so much time. Like, they've done so much on the farm, and you are
Mm.
so incredibly talented,
Mm.
and some of the creativity that I was seeing. And yeah, I didn't know if there was going to be, if we were going to get to know each other, or and then over time we just kind of had meetings here in this little room, just talking about life and ideas. And I think we share the same blessing slash burden of creativity, and the
Mm.
burden that is. Um, and so yeah, I've grown to really love you as a friend, and in a short time.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah,
And
definitely.
I am so grateful for you in my life.
Mm.
It means a lot. Getting emotional already. Haven't even started.
Mm.
Um, so I know a bit about you, but I don't know a lot about you because, when you have family and life and work, which is passing ships, and you have short conversations. And I thought it would be fun to maybe take us back and just fill in, for me anyway, and for those who are listening, to get to know you a bit. So, like, where were you born? I've never heard anything about your dad. I know I've
Right.
met your mom on the farm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was born in Calgary, Calgary, Alberta.
Didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah.
Okay.
I lived there for first like 8 years of my life. And yeah, my dad actually kind of left us like pretty early on. He was there for like the first few months,
Mm.
and then yeah, there was a lot of it's a that's a pretty complex story actually to go into too.
Hmm.
Yeah, so he wasn't really part of my life until I kind of reunited with him when I was like I think I was 20 years old when I asked my mom like who's my dad, and
Yeah. Were they married?
they weren't married. No, they ran a restaurant together, a health food restaurant
Oh, okay.
in Okanagan. So
Right.
yeah, they were kind of business partners, and I was the result of a kind of like
Passionate side of business.
passionate side of like a one night kind of
Oh boy.
yeah interlude. So um, but yeah, so that's kind of where that story kind of starts, but there's a lot
Yeah.
more to it for sure.
So, born in Calgary, and then how long were you in Calgary for? We're gonna have to watch you hitting this because it's really picks it up.
Oh yeah, okay.
Let's move that back a bit. So, how long until you moved out of Calgary?
Mm, I think I was 7 when we moved to Victoria.
Hmm.
Yeah, my mom just got out of a relationship that she was in for a few years, and uh, decided to start kind of fresh on the West Coast.
Hmm.
So we picked up in this old, like this rusty kind of Dodge van with like a big tall white roof, and we just kind of headed out west, and me and her, and we landed in Victoria. And so I guess she had a friend that connected her with some work out here, and
So
yeah,
you're an only child.
I'm an only child. Yeah,
Wow. So she had no plan. Just one friend just started driving.
yeah, one friend start anew, end a relationship, and start something like yeah, sick of Calgary, I guess at
How,
that point.
how old do you think your mom was about that?
Mm, she must have been in her late 30s.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, mid to late 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember because I grew up in near London, and then my dad was super poor. We were really poor. My whole life feels like since I went out on my own, we were just poor, raised pretty poor. And they just decided because I was raised in a really religious type of home. So my parents said felt like God called them to Cornwall, which is the opposite end of England. And pre having your phone and being able to research, just like loaded up the family, loaded up the ducks, loaded up the chickens in a station wagon, which is a Ford Cortina,
Oh, wow.
which is like a British station wagon, and just took off with nowhere to go, no address, no friends, no phone number, just took off. And yeah, I mean, I guess people do that now. Like you see nomadic type of people, but with your whole, like there was 2 children then,
Wow. Yeah.
and they just drove. But I think when you have faith,
Mm.
it really changes the dynamic because you feel like you're called, right? Like
Mm.
it's a different, you kind of, I don't know if it's a kind of um a soft comfort to know that, because you can kind of, maybe you can blame God if it all goes badly. It's like, well, God told me to.
Mm.
Like, I feel like there's this comfort in having in thinking or believing or making yourself believe that a higher power is moving you in a direction.
Right. Yeah.
Than if you don't have that at all, it's all on you.
Mm.
You know, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I'm curious how would they like what did that look like? Yeah, they saw that there was like a sign from God that they
Well,
it's time
yeah,
to
they
move,
were.
or is it just kind of like a
I think
switch?
I think what happens is that you feel a certain way, and then you start to put something out, like talk about things, and then what happens is you pick up the Bible,
Mm.
and the Bible can be anything you want. Like you can interpret the Bible in so many different ways.
Mm.
And so I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think that the Bible can be a great direction, like any book. Like we were talking about Marcus
Mm.
Aurelius and how that's just great directional content in there for your life. But probably what happened is they were thinking about something, and then they read a book, like the Bible, and it said, and David packed up his family and moved or
Mm.
something, and happened to fall on that scripture. And that's one piece of the puzzle. And then maybe they went to a prayer meeting and someone might have said,
Yeah.
I see you guys on an adventure or whatever.
Yeah.
But part of the beautiful thing I think about that is that it really, like, there's a lot of it. Like when you think of the Pilgrim Fathers, like they left England with not even a newspaper clipping on what to expect on the other side,
Mm.
just because they heard that there's a better life,
Mm.
and knowing that they'd probably lose a couple kids on the trip,
Yeah.
like, but believing that God had called them to the promised land.
Mm.
And yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think that's how it looks, something like that. And
Yeah.
then there's this like excitement, but I do feel, because I know that feeling, because is that you having God in the mix and thoroughly believing it is like you don't need everyone else's approval.
Mm.
So maybe it's this false sense of security, but maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. It
Mhm.
pushes you out of the nest anyway.
Mhm.
And I think that's what pushed them across. Um, yeah.
Yeah, across England.
Yeah. Across England and started a new life, and all these kind of miraculous things unfolded
Wow.
as I think when you're in a state of poverty, you do have doors open that would never open if you had money. Because if you had money, you
Mhm.
just show up at a hotel. When you're poor, you're relying on people's goodwill,
Mhm.
and therein lie these beautiful miracles that happen.
Yeah, synchronicities and miracles that
Yeah,
when you're buffered by, yeah,
cash.
wealth, then those things maybe not aren't so apparent to,
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So you went to Vancouver Island then, like
Hmm.
Victoria, and
Yeah.
then your mom set up shop there.
Yeah, she set up shop. She met my stepdad um soon after. Uh yeah, so we were living kind of in Brentwood Bay for a while. She was working at she was working at like a paint, like a wall covering supply place, like
Mm.
paint and wallpaper, and back in the days when wallpaper was a big thing.
It's kind of coming in again now.
Yeah. Uh and yeah, because she has a background in interior design, so that's what she was doing in Calgary. She was working for furniture, like a systems furniture
Hmm.
company, doing like big office buildings and stuff. And so then, yeah, so we landed in Victoria. I was, yeah, I've some vague fond memories of that time of just being in this kind of this totally new, fresh, kind of sunny, warm place that
Yeah.
was like not as much snow and yeah, much more nature, much more tree like
Yeah.
trees and everything, the ocean and yeah, I just remember like landing on the west coast and the smells and
Mm.
of the ocean were really impactful at that
And
time.
you were how old then, you think?
I was
Let me leave this out.
yeah, I was about yeah, I think I was like 7 years old,
Oh, okay.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um yeah, so
And how long were you in Victoria, think about?
um yeah, we were in Victoria for until I think we moved to Courtney when I was 12, maybe 11 or 12. So like 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
we were down there. Yeah. My mom met with my stepdad who ran a auto recycling business. And then he started one up here in Courtney.
Hmm.
So we moved up, we set up, we picked up and moved up here.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah,
And life went on.
life went on. Yeah.
So you're a super creative guy. Like I look up to you, and as far as your creative mind is
Mm,
complex and different than my creative mind,
yeah.
but I really I like it.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious as to when that started to blossom, when those wheels started to spin, and how that
Mm,
looked, and then um, I think you did some traveling, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, traveling as he played a role definitely. I've always been kind of drawn to like the spiritual realm in a way, like naturally. I read books on meditation when I was young, and
Mm-hmm.
that was really impactful for me.
Mm.
That exploring that process through my through late teenagehood and into my early 20s through psychedelics played a large role in that kind of
Yeah.
um that created a pretty big yeah shift in my awareness, my consciousness, and then from there I just kind of but yeah, I've always kind of had this proclivity for creativity and the visual arts. I remember in school, in elementary school, I had that was something that I really excelled at. So I think it
Like
was just
like the actual hands-on
yeah, hands-on
drawing and
drawing and such. And that it was like a large part of my childhood was imaginary play because I was this only child. So
mm,
I really like nurtured that that world. It was like a large part of like my daily kind of just
Just like all
imagining, creating comic books and characters and
right.
worlds and all these things out of all sorts of
Yeah.
whatever I had really at my disposal.
Yeah, it's funny that like I was really really imaginative like as a child, and I was thinking just 2 days ago, I think, like my son Gabriel, my so I have 4 children, and you've met the 2 young ones.
Hmm.
Maybe you've met the old ones too.
Briefly, I've met your son, your older
Raven,
son.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Raven and I, like he Raven would always be playing guns. Like in his world, if you gave him a stick, it was all of a sudden a gun, and then all of a sudden he was at war, and then he was rolling around in the grass and behind trees, and then and that's how I grew up. I remember some of the some of the most. Sorry, my back is. I'm going to be moving a lot during this interview because my back. I literally have a broken back. Um, and I remember the absolute joy of imagination, like it was like full immersed the world. Like I didn't care to eat or anything. Like sometimes when I was in a game, like usually it was war, because in England we played Second World War type of. You were probably more peace, love, and happiness, and I was shooting Germans. But
No, it's definitely lots of fighting
yeah,
involved for
it's in a
sure.
boy, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because in America it's like cowboys and Indians, right?
Right.
And for us it was Germans and British.
Hmm.
And so apples were grenades, and it was
Right.
always in the trenches. And I always wanted to be the injured soldier, like the soldier with the odds stacked against me, which speaks a lot about how I act as an adult now. But I remember not even thinking about it. I mean, like I'll be the soul. Like I'd have my leg blown. Like I would pretend my leg was got shot, so I'd be
Right.
dragging myself through the dirt, and I'm getting like, and all the other guys just running around, and I just had to be so real, and I had to be, it had to be, it was always the odds were against me,
Hmm.
like barely holding on. And that to me was where I naturally kind of went. But then I look at Gabriel, my youngest boy, and he has like these cool like guns that I've made him out of wood and stuff, or pellet guns, and he just shoots targets.
Hmm.
I've never once seen him role play.
Hmm.
And it's just, I don't think it's because of technology. I think it's just people's brains.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he lives in the now. Like he's like I want to shoot targets, or I want to, like he'll take his remote control car apart and try and like make it better and faster and
Hmm.
things like that. But
Yeah.
he won't, like I used to play cars for hours and just like do the whole, but I've never seen him do that. So it's funny how like some kids,
Yeah. The different proclivities for
yeah,
certain things and just innate kind of.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like your daughter's super imaginative,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah. She's in imaginary land all like
Yeah.
all the time and it even to the point where it can be like, yeah, come on, like we've got things to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I remember Amelia, my daughter, she wanted to be, she watched Brave, one of the first cartoons. So it's like that redheaded Scottish girl,
mm.
and she has a bow and arrow. And she's like, I am Brave. This girl called Brave in the movie. And so she has blonde hair. And so she found this red piece of fabric, and it stayed in her hair. And in the middle of the night, if it started to fall out, subconsciously she'd wake up, and it had to be on. It was a pain in the butt. She had to go to school with it. It was always in, and she was not Amelia anymore. She was Brave.
Wow.
And
Huh.
yeah, it can be challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So came to Courtney. Yeah. So creativity, we were talking about that. So psychedelics,
How did those play a role?
yeah, how did that play out? Like, I mean, some people have, it was, I got into the drugs, and,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
was a bad spiral and I had to
Yeah.
get out of it. For you, was it just not that?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't like in a way, yeah, in a way what there was that they definitely have like there's two sides to like it's got like two edges like in terms of For me, there was definitely like this kind of letting this ego dissolution at one point that
Mm.
really occurred, which
And how old are you?
I was about 20.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was young adult at that point.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, before that, uh, yeah, like I was um trying to, there was a bit of kind of reality escapism kind of tendencies with that stuff
Mm.
for a while, but that there was at that point I was in art school in Vancouver
Mm.
doing digital animation and visual effects. So I was kind of immersed in that world and then also exploring like my independence and like this new kind of experience of just being in Vancouver and the world's kind of at my world is my oyster kind of thing.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then I had this experience on psychedelics that really shifted my whole perception of self and um I think it also kind of like changed what I perceived of as like my own limitations.
Mm.
So at that point I really felt like I kind of just opened like my horizon more broadly in terms of like I'm capable like I don't have doubt that I could excel at this kind of art form or this thing, and there was like a lot less kind of like my own self inhibition.
Hmm.
um so that's kind of
So what that specific psychedelic journey,
yeah,
maybe tell me in detail, a bit
yeah,
more detail, how that all unfolded.
yeah,
And
sure, totally.
what drug was it, man? Because I want some.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's like it's not a repeatable thing, and that's like
Yeah.
a bit of the a bit of the I don't know, the dragon of it, or it's like I try to repeat that experience. It was a unique experience in itself. I was yeah, I was LSD. I was in I was hanging out in an apartment drawing. Me and my buddies we do drawings for like hours and hours on LSD. We just sit there and just draw these like super intricate things um and yeah, there was just this one experience where I'd been drawing like this single line, like very detailed, like mm, slow line, just like one line, like as slow as I possibly could. And it just, I reached the state of like deep meditation where it was kind of like this almost like transpersonal experience where like out of my individual self into like this greater self that I to this day like was like one of the most profound experiences of
And,
my life.
and what did that line represent?
The line was just kind of like it was almost like this thread of life, like just this slow kind of like single thread of my own perception and my of like the feedback of like what I was experiencing. And it was so simple because it's just like a line, like I'm just like looking at my hand, drawing a little line, like flakes of my hair starting to like fall down onto the page.
Hmm.
So, in reflection, like, because I had wondered, like, why was that experience so unique? And years after, I'd been doing like different forms of meditation, more seriously, like Vipassana, and I realized that like I had been combining like a serious form of meditation in that with psychedelics. So
Mm.
it's like this kind of combo, like kind of blew my ego right out of just like just like
Mm.
right out of the water kind of thing. So um, yeah, it took me years, long time to integrate what that meant. Like it was pretty, well, it was a pretty big experience, and it took a long time to like understand why why it was like why that had happened, why I couldn't just like do acid and then have that experience again.
Mm.
Because it's not like,
It's like where you are at that time.
yeah, it was very specific and it was very circumstantial and it was very like very much something that,
Incredibly simple, but
yeah,
incredibly impactful.
yeah,
What is your how do you see the ego? Because it's mentioned all the time, and I talk about it. We all talk about the ego, and I find sometimes I'm like, I hear this little voice say, "What are you talking about?"
yeah, yeah,
Like the ego is this thing, and I'm always curious about people's how people view what the ego is.
yeah, yeah. It's a slippery fish in a way.
Yeah.
Like a lot of concepts, but for me, it's this symbol of who I am. Like it's kind of the the uh the idea of myself, the idea of like I'm this guy, I'm like I've got all these traits, I mean characteristics. I'm some of them are like um specifically related to like reality of like who I am, but some of them are maybe like a bit more inflated or deflated
Mm.
or, you know, but it's just more of that symbolic self that
We cling to.
yeah, that I walk around with and like
My trophy.
kind of, yeah, navigate the world with.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like your accolades go before you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like before you even, yeah, it's like I'm Joby. I own a car. I own my own business. I have 4 kids. I know how to do this. I've got money in the bank.
Yeah, yeah.
And
All
it's just a
these.
big facade
Yeah.
that's in front. And so to be without your ego, so that line represented someone's coming in.
Putting the oh, it must be raining outside. They're probably putting the wagon
Yo!
in.
That'll,
Yeah.
we're live on TV.
Yeah.
On camera. um, Adam's wife popped in. So that line represented like all of that gone, or
Yeah.
just like it feels like when you have experiences that base you away from your ego, it's extreme. It seems to be, from what I hear and what I've experienced too, is it's extremely humbling.
Mm-hmm.
Realizing you're just a speck
Hmm.
on a planet hurtling through space, and is that what you?
Yeah, I
In
mean,
not a bad way though.
yeah, in a way, it was like that I am it was humbling, but in almost like this profoundly opposite way of what you're describing. Like
Mm,
I'm like there's something that I'm just connected completely to. Like
mm,
that I'm actually not a separate self. I'm not like this specific, like there's something that I am experiencing or part of that kind of transcends me.
mm,
And and experiencing that was like what kind of shattered my sense of self at that point.
mm,
And it was such a bizarre experience because it wasn't something that I was aware of that could even be
mm,
like that could even happen or that even is like so it's such a odd experience that I was like for months afterwards it was like this like
shook you up.
it shook me up completely. It changed my whole perception of reality and everyone around and my relationships to reality.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was powerful moment in the
Yeah.
line of my life.
Yeah, it seems like the ego can get really convoluted and tangled, and um, yeah, when you pull away from all of those entanglements and put the ego up on the shelf, and it might seem like you're being diminished, but in actual fact, you're realizing your connection to maybe the creator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like my experiences of it is like even looking, like being a little bit stoned or something and looking at the stars and just realizing the enormity of it.
Mm-hmm.
It can make you feel like nothing, but make you feel like everything all at the same time. Like the fact that I'm alive and that I am part of this painting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the ego is just such a pain in the ass. I mean, what
Yeah.
good does it do?
I, I, I mean, I think we use it to strive for things. Like
Right. For excellence.
there's kind of there's a function of like, yeah, striving, needing like improvement. Like,
Right.
I think if we maybe didn't have egos at the forefront, or even like, I think in our culture, maybe, um,
There'd be no point. There'd be no
yeah,
effort put into anything really.
yeah, the effort might not be
Yeah.
as, yeah, so,
Yeah. It's learning to, it's like someone I heard talk about the critical self. You'll never get away from the critic, the inner critic. He'll always be there.
mm,
And so when you're on a creative journey, this woman was a book writer and she says, okay, I'm going to write a new book. And I know you're coming for the ride.
mm,
And last time you're a real pain in my ass. But she's like, we're going to go for this journey. You're going to sit in the back because I know you're coming. But you can't play with the radio frequencies and you can't play with the heat and you can't ask where we're going. You just got to sit back there and
mm,
be quiet. So she learned that the inner critic is not going to leave this story, but I can put it to the quietest corner and give it rules.
right.
Like you're not going to steer the ship.
Yeah, but it's still integrated, still has a role, still is there's a place for it.
Yeah, and I guess maybe these Achilles heels that we have keep us humble in a way.
Mm,
Because if you mastered it,
mm-hmm,
almost pride would come. Like we're all in this fight together. We're fighting these demons throughout our life, and they kind of keep you humble,
mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
um, in a way.
I think it's baked into like experience. Like
Hmm.
you just kind of you can't have one without the other. Like in terms of, yeah, there's this proclivity, I think, to like want to transcend like the shadow or the critic or the ego, but I think there's like just such a core value in
Hmm.
having that. It's like the yin and the yang, where it's like the
Yeah.
darkness is there to like kind of emphasize or accentuate things.
Yeah, and I've often thought about monks, like I think it's maybe a high calling, but not as high as I used to think of it because I'm like, if I wanted to run away from life into a monastery and everything was paid for and I would be able to reach this state of permanent meditation. Um, but it's not reality. I mean, it's like that's going to come maybe on the other side of death.
Hmm.
But I feel like if to be like a monk in a monastery, you're kind of chickening it out of the real fight.
Hmm.
And
Right.
it's like people who go through their life not having kids, and no criticism if you don't have kids, like it's all good. But I feel like you can look at a couple with kids and think, oh my God, like on a plane, someone's kid's crying, and think, thank God we don't have kids, you know. But in actual fact, it's very reductive, and the joy of children way outweighs the hardship of children.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of conning yourself and lying to
Mm-hmm.
yourself if you think that, you know, deep down there's an incredible well
Mm-hmm.
of character
Yeah.
that can be built from it. Like a parent, like we've got character. Like you've been beaten.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a man who's just having his fourth baby coming up here.
Yeah, still building that character.
Still
Still,
building, yeah,
still the
the,
capacity and
the worn outness and that your time isn't your own. And
yeah. Yeah.
so psychedelic journey, and then you traveled.
Yeah. I spent some time in Southeast Asia.
By yourself?
A little bit by myself. I traveled with a friend for a while. I traveled by myself. Did some uh, mm, I took a Thai massage program.
Hmm.
Learned a bit about that. Um, and just yeah, spent some time in northern Thailand, just kind of hanging out, living. Uh, Traveled a bit in Central America. Kind of took the chicken bus route, the whole kind of like down down from Mexico down through Belize and Honduras. That was
Hmm.
pretty pretty wild. Um, and yeah, everyone each one of those traveling experiences, it's always like I've got a really strong home base. I'm pretty rooted where I am, but whenever I travel, it's like it gives me this kind of like replenishment of like I come back and I just like really feel like I'm like the creativity and like
Hmm.
I just want to like ground all this creativity that I feel like I've
Picked up on.
picked up on. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's
Traveling is so, I've encouraged my older kids and they're, just lack courage in that area. But I just think, man, it's so important
yeah.
to feel the loneliness of traveling sometimes, like that intense loneliness where me and my sister were talking about this a couple of podcasts back, how, we used to sleep on people's couches and how awkward that feels. And you're kind of like, you don't have much money. And those are all things that are good journeys, that make you strong for life. And traveling is just, it kind of speeds up the growing up process, I think.
Yeah. And it's really, I think, important to experience like that our culture, the like the how what the limitations of our culture is. Like when I first went to Asia, it was like I didn't realize like our culture is like this specific thing that doesn't exist. Like it's so different over there that I could see the boundaries between the things and like how
Right.
like there's this assumption that when when you haven't gone that everyone's kind of the same.
Mm.
There's like this kind of but when you're in this place immersed with these different um traditions, these different ways of living, it's just like we yeah, we just there's so much to be
Mm.
kind of I think gained from experiencing that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What would you say was like one of the most impactful experiences on your world travels?
Huh. Um, I don't know if I can pinpoint any one thing. It's kind of, I mean, just walking for like days. Just like that was my favorite. Just walking like through cities, through like the countryside.
Just watching people.
Yeah, just experiencing just different, so many different realities of life and ways of living. Um, those are the memories that really
Mm.
like woke me up at night for years after when I came back home and
Really? How's that? How do you mean?
just like this that it's left such an impression on
Mm.
on me that I would wake up at night and it would be like this yearning to be in that kind of just this like experience of complete unknown almost like
Mm. Adventure.
yeah adventure yeah
Yeah.
it's just like pure adventure.
Yeah, we were talking about that, I think, a while back along, how we have that in common, or like, the adventure is such an important or such a core part of who I am.
Yeah.
And I've realized more and more as life gets more committed and serious and all the stuff that we put around, adventure diminishes, and sometimes it makes you feel, you realize that, why is the candle flickering and barely on
Mm.
in my heart? It's like that adventure.
Yeah, trying to trying to cultivate that is hard when you have got like just
Just your everyday
every day.
bog standard commitments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think traveling for me, like one of the things that still hits me like we were in Mexico recently and did a lot of driving around, and I'm just my mind is always going like I'm just curious, like, oh, like I see like there's lots of half built properties over there.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're just like the roof didn't ever get put on, and the windows and they're just empty, filled with trees growing through the middle. And my imagination is like wants to finish it,
Mm.
and then I'm like, and I'm so curious about the story. I'm like, someone bought that land, started building, mixing concrete, building the walls, and then it stopped. What happened there?
Mm.
And but I was talking about it with my sister, and she's like, hundreds of people drive right by those properties and don't think that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when are we getting to the beach?
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I'm just saying my mind works like maybe yours is. I'm like, I see all these stories as I'm driving by,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
a little lady that's sitting outside selling corn on the cob in the middle of nowhere with a table, and everything inside me really wants to pull over and follow her home and just
Yeah.
find out her story.
Yeah.
Like it makes me hungry when I'm at a place like that like I'm thirsty. You have kids in the car and you can't do that. And it's like, she'd think I'm a creep if I follow her. But, I mean, but there is definitely, I think, acknowledging that there's this thirst because I think it comes back to the ego thing. Like when I see, when I remember flying from here to Vancouver, right? It's like hour flight. And I was just so humbled because I was building out my farm, and I thought this will all make my farm amazing, and people are going to say, wow. And then I'm driving over to Vancouver, and I'm like, it was just humbling. I'm like, there's thousands of people doing it, and no one can see their farm unless you're in the sky. And then you macro that to the world, and you just like, there's people all over the world just building their little thing and not being noticed. And I don't know. I don't know. Understand it all, but it really intrigues me and makes me feel small in a way. It's just amazing to me.
Yeah.
That everyone's life is so important. Like we got so lost in Mexico in the middle of nowhere, and just seeing these little habitats. It's like walking for 4 hours in the forest and seeing an anthill. It'd be like, those guys are just doing that out here. Like, there's no camera on them. They're not going to make it onto television. It's just like, it's humbling and also amazing. I don't know, but
the people, yeah. I definitely have that kind of similar experience. I know for me, when I leave the farm, there's a time of adjustment because it's such a world to me. It's like I'm co-creating this place and put so much significance onto it. And then when I go, the further away I go, the more I'm like, oh, it's like, what is this larger world that I'm actually in? It's just like the significance of what I'm creating there and what I'm doing is just like starts diminishing and diminishing. And I notice like after a few days that if I've gone away and that it takes a while for me to come back and like
get excited about
acclimatized and get excited about kind of like land and be like, okay, now what am I like? Where were we? Where was I?
I'm totally like that.
Like, so I think it's important experience to have to kind of reframe things, but it's
gives you perspective.
Yeah.
I remember you were talking one dinner that you came over about India, and did you do that with Jane, your wife?
Yeah.
That must have been that's one place I would really like to go, and I heard it can be harrowing though, can't it? Like the amount of poverty.
I wanted to leave for half the time I was there.
Really?
Yeah.
Because just the amount of diarrhea.
Just the intensity of everyone. Like, you just kind of
like in your face,
like people staring and just the over, like, there's no, like, we're used to like politeness, people standing in line, people taking turns here, like doing like this courtesy. It's like there, it's just so every person for themselves. It's like the
What
level
can
of
I get from this
yeah,
white traveler?
yeah, and that was really hard because there was a few times where I let my guard down even a little bit, and
Yeah.
like, oh, this person looks nice. Yeah, we're going. Yeah, we want to go. Yeah, well, let's go to that place you're talking about. We'll go to this restaurant. It turns out it was like, it's this whole scheme to get us to go to some
Yeah.
place where
Yeah.
they and so yeah, so you end up I ended up yeah getting pretty guarded and getting pretty like yeah feeling
Weird, isn't it?
yeah
I found that Tara and I were in Italy and we got kind of stranded there because it was an a strike. And there's a lot of people from poor, because Europe gets all of the refugees and they were just selling stuff to you, like left, right, and center, right in your face. And this one guy put a bracelet on and he's selling bracelets. I'm like, no, no, no. He's like, it's okay. It's like, you can have it free or something like that. So he put the bracelet on. I'm like, oh, thank you. And um, I don't know how the story went, but he told me I could have it for free. And then the story changed and it was like, let's go to a cash machine. I said, no, 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 you can have the bracelet back. And he pulled it off me and just told me to fuck off. And, it's like, I don't know, there's this, like, you think you go to somewhere like India and your heart is poured out with mercy. But we don't not know what it's like to be that poor and that destitute. And
yeah
I get that, but it's hard to have an open heart around that like grabby,
yeah
like culture
yeah
that, it's like, I want to freely give you,
mm-hmm.
but I don't want to be told to give you,
yeah
or persuaded in a way that just feels slimy.
yeah
And you kind of get calloused. Like, we bought this painting of a little Vespa, and I was like, there was a guy on a little road, like cobbled street, and Tara and I were walking and in a good mood, and this guy was like selling these beautiful little postcards that he'd watercolored painted because he was in art school, right? Signed the back. So we bought one. Oh, we actually found the authentic guy.
mm.
Well, the next day we found 5 other guys selling the exact same painting.
okay
He hadn't painted it at all. And now it sits on my wall, and I'm like, I don't know if I ever want that on my wall. Like, I got, that's a symbol of me getting ripped off, not a symbol of me helping someone.
yeah yeah
And
it's
then,
hard yeah hard to find yeah it's always questioning the authenticity in those places of people's actions and what they just kind of it's really kind of constantly on guard. I found myself
yeah,
when I was there. I was just always just suspicious of, of the motivations of everyone, even and in that it's just fine. It's hard to yeah find some sense of like I don't know peace or
yeah, because you're blocking. Like, if you went to rural India, though, do you think it would be? Because my friend went to, a friend of mine just came back from Cambodia, and Cambodia is extremely poverty stricken. And he said the generosity there
mm, yeah yeah
was,
yeah we did. I mean we did experience occasions where like this woman and her daughter like brought us into their little like concrete bunker of a house and gave us some rice and just like we're but then we're just like oh,
what's the catch?
do they want something like are they is it
Yeah.
like wanting some donation or something like that so every experience is like is kind of tainted by this like this skepticism of
Yeah.
like what is going on here is this actually so
I don't know if cities like the capitals are a good representation of the country.
yeah
Like, because when we were in Rome, after, because we were stranded there for so long, we ended up taking one of these Airbnb experiences that took us up into the mountains to real local Italians. And it was like night and day,
yeah
like they were genuinely not trying to sell us something, you know. And I think if you go to any capital,
Mhm.
you're not going to get
Not gonna get
the
that.
real authentic country experience of the country.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so travels, and so this farm that you're on right now. So how many acres do you have?
Yeah, 64.
64 acres, Greenhaven Farm. It's got all these little creative, like when I first came here, like I said, I went down into the woods where Ryan lives, and it's like this. I mean, you're probably so used to seeing that thing because you built it and lived in it. It's just like, when I saw, I'm like, oh my God. Like, it's like something from a Hobbit
Yeah.
village put hoisted up into the trees. And every corner I turn is another cool little creative thing going on. So what's the story with this farm? And
Yeah. Well, my mom and my stepdad purchased the farm in 96.
hmm,
And it was, yeah, there was not really that much on here. An original farmhouse that hadn't been updated since probably the 50s, something like that. And then there was an old barn that was like, yeah, I'm gonna grab a drink too. An old barn that had been kind of left to,
rack and ruin.
yeah, yeah, and some other buildings. And so, yeah, we built the house. My stepdad and my mom designed and built the main house on the property, and 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 a big shop, and um and and kind of like, and we had like a we're part of this program to bring volunteers in called the woofing program.
Yep.
So we just have like people help at the gardens and stuff. So that was a big that was part of like the culture of the place. Like as a teenager, there'd always be kind of like these random kind of traveling people that were coming through. So it really exposed me to like these
Mm,
different ways of being, these kind of more um, alternative uh, alternative people. And um, so yeah, so that was kind of the culture of the farm has always been kind of this more communal, um, it's a increasingly communal space. There's been fluctuations of different people living on the land, and so uh, yeah, I mean, to go into all the whole history of it, it's probably beyond the scope of like what we can get into. But
hmm,
um, so my mom and my stepdad separated about, I think about 10 years ago,
hmm,
and so he was he was like quite wealthy, so he had like a big business and a lot of other investments. So my mom ended up with the farm.
hmm,
And around that time, I'd started like just kind of really getting into building like alternative type stuff. I was moving out of purely painting and sculptural mediums and wanting to get into more functionality and
hmm,
wanting to like make things, furniture, and make contraptions, and just like get more into.
hmm,
So I started, yeah, really getting into architecture, natural building, and different forms of inventive creativity,
hmm,
uh, forging, and um, so yeah, and there the cabins, the pagoda in the back
hmm,
is kind of this kind of like playground of trying things out, really.
hmm,
Yeah, trying things that like I couldn't normally do at a normal job, normal building job
Hmm.
or working for certain clients. Um, that, that voicemail.
Right.
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a bit of a creative playground, the space. There's
Yeah.
been a lot of different artistic influences that have come through, and um, so yeah, it's a bit of
Yeah.
the uh, the beginnings of what it is. It's shifted and changed over the years, but
Constant topic of conversation. What's this farm supposed to be used for?
yeah,
What's the purpose?
yeah. What are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
what's the thing?
The thing.
Yeah,
How, like, so COVID 4 years ago now.
yeah, yeah,
Um, do we have time to go into that?
yeah. We got. I think we had another 15 minutes or
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
So, um, I met, well, part of the like when we moved to the island, it was for multiple reasons. It was one, I had a massive mortgage in Vancouver. I was dying in Vancouver as far as spiritually. Just the city was killing me. I felt like very unhappy. And then part of it was a retreat from all that we had lost during COVID as far as our friendship groups and just disillusionment and wanting to provide for ourselves. And
Hmm.
and then we integrated with the potluck group, which was kind of still part of the same crowd,
Hmm.
which was a guy who basically opened his home up during COVID and said, you know, screw this, can't go. If you can't go to restaurants, come to our house. And they said that
Yeah.
they just open their house up every week, which is pretty incredible,
Yeah.
and had these beautiful times to eat and share.
Hmm.
And because we were all going through a crazy, crazy time.
Yeah.
Um, how was COVID? How did it impact you? How did it change you? How is there still um, afterburn from COVID in your life in different ways?
Yeah. 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 Incredibly impactful. It was kind of the apocalypsis and the lifting of the veil for me in a lot of ways.
Right.
Seeing coordinated efforts of propaganda and just like it was really like a um, uh, crucible, I think, just like pressure. Like
Mm,
it was just like
for the world in general.
yeah, yeah, and I felt like at that time I just really had an urgent um, desire and mission to like be a safe place
Mm,
and to connect people and to do the opposite of what was being
mandated.
mandated and handed down to be like here like no we get like I want to come together. I want to be together and bring people together at
Yeah.
this time. So so yeah that um yeah it felt to me like uh yeah just there's a lot of unresolved trauma from that experience as to like in terms of trust and
For the government or for even with friends and
um luckily I had a really supportive friend group already. There was some people who just kind of like turned their backs on us and
right.
were like you guys are yeah whatever heretics or whatever.
Hmm.
um but for the most part it was very like community became like
Mm,
much tighter
mm,
during that time. There was a lot of a lot more connection and a lot more like yeah we gotta bond together
mm.
and support each other. um,
Was your mom in with same belief system because you were on the same property?
yeah,
Because that would have been important.
luckily every single
That would
person
have
here,
sucked if
every single person living here at the time was all in.
screw that.
Yeah, we're all kind of like yeah this
Yeah.
does not make it's not it's not make sense. This is not ringing with truth. Uh,
I wonder what I mean, I don't think it's a holistic thing, but definitely we were on Vancouver City, and I think in a lot of big cities, it was very, follow the mainstream narrative,
Mm.
and we were definitely outcasts. Had we been here, I think we would have found, and I wonder if it's like something to do with like landowners.
Mm.
There's some type, it draws a certain type of personality that wants to make it a go of it.
Right.
I don't know, because it definitely, when we came here, it was like, holy, finally, we found our people.
It's a bunch of anarchists.
Yeah. But I mean, it's funny because I still am flabbergasted on when that pressure crucible was tightened and that vice was tightened up. The quote anarchists, like, because I've got friends of mine who are hardcore punk rockers, like
Mm-hmm.
listen to the Clash only, just very, not fashion punk rock, not Green Day punk rockers,
Yeah.
but the hard roots Ramones punk rockers.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like they were fully going ahead with what the mainstream, which is completely the opposite of everything that they've ever sang about, it was anti-establishment.
Yeah, it's bizarre, like how...
power to the people.
Yeah.
And they switched, and it was power to the government, follow the establishment.
Yeah.
So the funniest people bubbled to the surface, right? It's like, oh, you didn't expect you here at the party.
Yeah. Same kind of thing. Yes, what we experienced. We were part of, Jane was part of this kind of mama's like vaccine skeptic group.
Oh yeah.
Before. And
okay. Oh yeah, because
so we
a lot of the vaccines before this were dodgy.
Yeah, dodgy, and so like in this group, like all these women were like, a large portion of them were like, like very like health conscious, skeptical about like what this increased vaccine schedule, all these things that are being pumped into the children, and then along comes COVID, and along comes like this this narrative of like fear, and they're all like, well, this is different, this is like
weird,
this is different, this is like somehow
it's
like
I bet it was tough for Jane, probably.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it pushed a nerve on. Well, there was so many statistics going around. There was like 75% of people would rather be told what to do.
Yeah.
Which is shocking. Whereas probably, I would say 80% of people think that they're independent thinkers, but in actual fact, when the vice was turned, like your friends, right? It's like almost, it's like being a fashion renegade, like, but when it really comes down to it, like, this is getting crazy now.
Yeah.
Now they're telling us we could die.
When someone pokes that like fear of death, I think a lot of people just resort to kind of just go with whatever, like go with the whatever's being,
Yeah, it was bizarre, man.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's been a real reckoning on scale of like those two sides. I recently had a conversation with a close friend of mine where I listened to his podcast, and he said, with your friendships and your marriages and your companies, this is one question he always says. He's like, what's the hard thing I'm not saying? And I had this chip on my shoulder with my friend for a long, long time, ever since COVID. It's like, not that he chose to get vaccinated and I didn't care about that at all. It was the fact that there didn't seem to be any empathy to the ousting we were getting. Like we were treated like dogs, like worse. You're the reason for these deaths. Like when they say that from the media, you kind of think, oh, it's not a big deal if you're on the other side. Like, what are you whining about? But it was traumatic. Like when you have your leaders telling you you're the cause of death. That if it wasn't for you, we would all be getting back to work now. You can't go see your children graduate. You can't go to a restaurant, but they can. You you can kind of laugh it off and think, oh, it's not a big deal, not going to a restaurant, but just the principle of it was really deeply hurtful.
Yeah.
And for me, I struggle with betrayal. It's my biggest kind of like, if you want to fast track to push a button in me, it's like betray me, turn your back on me, or talk behind my back. Yeah, I will. It'll be like big red button in my life just because of my past, right? And so this just exacerbated that. And I talked to my friend and, just got really honest and said, hey, it was really hard for me and I've never really gotten over it and I said, I just wanted to get this out there because we're close friends. And his perspective was, yeah, I mean, not like, didn't believe everything I believed, but still like, man, if I could do this all again, I would have not, I was just, and I have empathy for that. Like people were thrown into a very difficult situation. It's like that movie, Sophie's Choice. Like these impossible choices were put in front of people. Choose them or choose them right now.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? And I get it, but it doesn't diminish the fact that there's still some hardcore wounds kicking around.
Yeah. Some big elephants in the room. In a lot of ways.
And now the massive lack of trust of media.
Yeah.
And
yeah, there's a lot of lessons there, a lot of shifts and a lot of re kind of revising or like recalibrating, yeah, is what my values are. What is this? What's like what is this world that we live in? Like what is the actual like overarching pattern here? Like with this and actually a lot of the Christian philosophy and theology was very strong in those during that time, and it came spent. I mean, a lot of the people that I saw that were in the same boat were like Christians, and I'm like I was trying to understand like why what do they have that is like this kind of like sense of like like it's almost like they have this this kind of like attunement to propaganda. Like that's what a friend of mine says. You can sense when you're being propagandized more readily because maybe there's like something
a trend or
yeah,
something they can sniff out.
Yeah, sniff out more easily than because it's part of the worldview of like sin and the doctrine of sin and like the world itself isn't. The world is not your friend. It's like the world is something there to be like. It's the whole concept of Babylon and like, still kind of being very much alive. And what? Yeah. So what is?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're living in a. Well, I was listening to something on YouTube. They were just saying like I think there's 7 stages to the fall of a civilization. If you study all the different civilizations, like Rome is the big one that we all know about, but and we're in stage 7, which is bewilderment with gender, and one of them is just godlessness, like not having any moral compass as far as that. Whereas America was founded on Christian values, and I've had a hard time with Christianity, the church, anything to do with that because of my background and how abused I've been in that. But I find myself more and more bringing up Bible stories. Like someone came over the other day and I was like, these 2 Bible stories, and I found myself being unashamed to talk about it because I've learned to talk about it I listened to Jordan Peterson talk about the Bible, and he goes, as the story goes. And when you're in the church, it's like, no, this is the word of God. So you have to But now I'm learning to like, I don't know whether it's true or not. Like, was there really Noah and the ark? Was there really Jonah and the whale? Was there really Samson? Were these fables? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay not knowing. But if you're in the church, no, they really happened. They're gospel. But
Mm-hmm.
now I'm kind of framing it as the story goes. And these like, to me, the story of the Good Samaritan was exactly what we were going through COVID.
Hmm.
You know, the Pharisee was passed. There was, you know, the story, right? There was a guy who was beaten up on a Sunday and left in the ditch to die. And everyone was on their way to church and passed by on the other side.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, I can't deal with it today. Yeah, you know.
Mm.
But the Samaritan was the most, with the Samaritans and the Jews, or I don't know, they didn't mix. He put all that aside and went to take care of this wounded person. The person that would be the first guy that should have skirted around this guy went and
Hmm.
took care. But anyway, I've been feeling more and more lately how these biblical stories that are kind of deep in me are starting to bubble to the surface now.
Hmm.
And I'm able to speak about them without getting tangled up in all of my bad experience with church,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's interesting that you have been leaning on like
Mm-hmm.
Christian. Are you just been curious about Christianity more, or?
Yeah, more curious, more involved too. Like I've been reading the Bible. I've read through a lot of the Old Testament and
Mm.
have been going, yeah, some of the New Testament and yeah, just gleaning a lot of wisdom off of the stories, like
It is
stories that you
wisdom.
share. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like when you think of the Ten Commandments, I used to always think, this is a God that's like God, like going to give us a heart, like he's like an overbearing father. Don't do this, don't do that. But actually, it's just like, don't covet your neighbor's wife because you're going to probably get your face smashed in. Don't steal because you're going to go to jail. You know, don't commit adultery. It's going to end in court and be a nightmare. And, you know, it's like a lot of these things, if you can pull the religious kind of like wagging finger, they're just smart ways to live,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And the parables are just so helpful
Yeah.
in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they've been formative for our culture and I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think we think we were just too much of a tendency to throw the baby out with the bathwater in this postmodern era that we're living in.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, the kind of inversion of values and everything
It would be great if they could teach it to school kids or something in more of just a great history book. Because when you look at the values of Jesus, they're incredible. Like, I am so challenged by the fact that
yeah,
on the cross, he forgave those
yeah,
who were killing him. Like, that is the most humbling as a human being who want to lash out at people that hurt us,
yeah, yeah,
is like, just sit with that.
yeah,
Like, you know?
yeah. There's been definitely some profound moments of just listening to the story of Jesus
Yeah.
and yeah, just wow, that like someone who would step out of the way, gladly step out of the way. Like you want the thing. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
And they kind of, they discombobulate you. Like the robber who's on the cross with him doesn't do one good thing in his whole life, and then at the last second says, "I think you're Jesus," and he goes, "I'll see you in heaven." You
mm.
go, what do you mean? He just robbed people his whole life, and now you're getting him fast tracked up there. You know, and it's like shit. You know,
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, it would be great if they could just teach it in school. It's just like this, or just teach it without. I mean, you just got to pull religion out of it because religion just messed it all up, in my
mm.
opinion. Just
Yeah,
trying to make it doctrine and trying to make it dogma and
yeah.
trying to like,
Control people with it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I've seen it time and time again. And it's just a natural thing that us humans do. It's like we create a movement and then the movement has to have rules because
yeah,
kind of, you know, like this farm has rules. You have to have rules.
yeah.
And then it just becomes a mess. But
Yeah.
yeah. So we getting to the end of our time.
Yeah, gotta get ready for going to get some
family stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to CrossFit actually.
Oh yeah. I wish.
Self.
I wish I could do something like that. I can barely. Standing up's going to be a challenge. Well, thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was a fun first go at it.
Yeah.
We'll see how it turns out in the editing room.
Curious, yeah.
And
Yeah. Thanks for bringing this. It's a different experience for me.
Got me out of the house.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah.
See where the conversation leads.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Check you later.
Thanks.
See you guys.